Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Hope you had a great February. Today, we're back at our fourth episode of Bitcoin Talks with Sergio and David. Today, we're going to be talking about demystifying the transaction in Costa Rica, how to do a real estate deal with escrow accounts, how to do it with the realtor, talk a little bit about the market, things that we have going on in different markets. I was just in Santa Teresa for the weekend. We've got a couple deals signed there as well, and we met with some Bitcoin clients that are purchasing there. We've got some more clients in Tamarindo and a few others here in Dominical. We're also going to touch base a little bit about Sergio. You just got an amazing invite to speak at the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas. I'm hoping that I can make it with him. I'm just not sure if my wife will let me go alone with him, but we're going to try to make it all happen. And so it's going to be an exciting talk. Hopefully you guys will join us. And then we're also going to open this up a little bit to some of the forum of asking questions within our YouTube channel, so we can bring them up for our next talk as well. Sergio, welcome, buddy. It's been a while. I haven't seen you. I know we've been crossing paths again from San Jose to here. You want to start with any opening comments?
Thank you. Yes, well, very happy for the invitation of the Bitcoin event. The topic will be Costa Rica, so it's amazing to be able to be at the stage, and it's 40,000 attendees, and to be able to talk about first our country, Costa Rica, nature, longevity, blue zone, political stability, everything, and the most important thing, all the Bitcoin transactions that we are doing to educate the audience, Bitcoin wealth, and everything about everything that we talk in this.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that, for a country that has been somewhat, I don't want to use the word anti, but it is in essence anti-crypto, right? We actually are, Bitcoin jungle. We've got different groups in San Jose, things like that are running different Bitcoin organizations. You and I are doing the podcast and really opening it up. We've got Salvador, a sister country that's really run with. And South America, or Central America, let's call it, has not really gotten that big push compared to somewhere like the UK or Puerto Rico, for that matter, right? With the acceptance of it. So I think that having you, the list of people that you're speaking with on the board and within the Bitcoin conference is high level, and kudos to you, man. That's just an amazing thing to happen. So I'm really excited. And I think it also, like you said, it's going to put us on the map for Costa Rica, which I don't think many people understand that, even though it's not that it's 100% accepted, there's always a ways around it, which we're going to speak about today. So, why don't we jump into that? I think a couple questions have been coming up are what is demystifying, I guess the word we're using today, the transaction of real estate in Costa Rica. And I think that, just kind of touching a little bit more on that basis of how we do it. So, I guess I'll start off with, mostly you and I are getting phone calls about escrow and how does the money transact? Can I do it in USDT? Can I do it in Bitcoin? Can I do it in Ethereum and all these kind of things? And our answer always is, but there's always, every transaction has a little bit of a different of a twist. And we have touched base on this a little bit where, somebody might want to keep their money in the States. That's a lot easier for you and I to do it through the escrow companies because the transaction's actually happening in the escrow in the US. Whereas if it's somebody that wants to keep their money in Costa Rica, there's a little bit more of a couple more steps to go through with that. So, we've got some different deals that we have in the, call it $4.5 million range, deals in the, 2.5 million, some in 400,000. Let's touch base on the process that you're going through and the technical part for the people today. Let's just say it's a $4 million deal and the seller wants to keep the money in Costa Rica, and I'm going to be exchanging it from, let's call it, partly in Bitcoin and partly in Ethereum. How about that? We'll mix it up a little bit more there too and throw that in there. What would that process be for our listeners to kind of go through?
Yes, perfect. So the first part, I will ask for your official ID, your passport, for example, and then the two wallets, your Bitcoin wallet and your Ethereum wallet. I will do a KYT on each wallet just to validate that the coins you will be sending are not flagged by anything. And then I will do a KYC, a traditional KYC on you. We run that in a...
Before you go on there, explain what a KYC is, because most people might not know that.
Okay, KYC is know your client. So it's basically to check you in global list to make sure that you haven't committed any type of crime, that you are not in any red flag list, and that you're not a political exposed person. That's super traditional. And KYC,
which is a normal procedure with any transaction, even if we're not doing crypto. All of our escrows in Costa Rica, for all of our listeners out there, will require you to do a KYC to get to know your client. It's just a process to go through to make sure everything's above board, even if you're transferring crypto or dollars.
Exactly. So that's step one. that happens in a platform we have powered by Chainalysis, that it is the biggest platform for compliance, and it takes 10 minutes. It's a completely expedited process. Then the second part immediately is to sign contract with us, with our company. It's a Digiplat Inc., an MSP license in the US, a regulated company. So you sign two contracts, the exchange contract and the paymaster contract. So that's step number two. In parallel, you onboard in an escrow, the one that we work with. So it's basically upload form and everything, very traditional. Once that is in place, if the counterparty is really active, that will happen in 24 hours. We are able to receive the coins. What we do is we receive the Bitcoins and we receive the Ethereum, following up your example, and we exchange it immediately to US dollars with our liquidity providers. And the price, of course, those are volatile coins. So depending on the market price, we will say, okay, we have the full amount, or we need more, or we have a bit more. So at the end of the day, important, the price will always be in dollars. So we're talking about 4.5 million. So we will make sure to have at least 4.5 million in dollars in our US tier one bank account.
Okay. And so what is my security as I'm a buyer, right? I'm going to be transferring, $4 million in my Ethereum and Bitcoin, exchanging it to USDT and then putting it in dollars. Here on that transfer, what are my securities with the escrow companies and stuff that we're working with?
Well, the most important thing is that you're dealing with a regulated entity, US regulated entity. You have proper contracts in place, and that we are dealing with tier one banks, institutional exchanges, tier one compliance tools, and a tier one Costa Rica escrow. So that's the security. Everything is completely formal in terms of contracts before sending any coins. So it's not like, hey, it's not like a WhatsApp group. Shady thing. No, it's completely. I always use private equity standards. So that's how.
Yeah, I mean, you're not doing it on Telegram and Signal and sending your private message and sending a thing. It's all private stuff, which is going through on chats and things like that, and we're getting it through. I think that's important for everyone to understand that, because that's one of the biggest worries as they try to do a transaction, and then the rest of that process is pretty straightforward with the attorneys and stuff, as we would do a normal deal. Once it clears the tier one bank and the escrow to get it through, we're then going through the process of the closing documents and all that, and then a transfer will be made. Normally, I think in my experience that we're doing a smaller transfer first, and then we're transferring the rest just to make sure all bank statements and things are correct, and bank accounts and stuff are correct as well.
Yes, correct. We move funds to the US escrow bank account. So they basically issue a statement that they already have the funds. When the deed transfer agreement is signed, they move the funds to Costa Rica, to a local bank, an escrow bank, and then they send the money to the seller in his local bank account, but via Simpe or via Cheque de Gerencia. Usually the escrow also from Costa Rica, they pay the real estate agency, pay the legal fees, everything through local transaction. This part is important because sometimes people think, hey, we're dealing with crypto, so I'm the seller, I want my money in Banco Nacional or Banco, and how I'm going to get my money. You get it like in a normal transaction. It's not that we will make you do or take additional steps.
Yeah, I mean, and in that sense, like I said, that's where it really normalizes the deal. I guess the other conversation would be to bring up or demystify, as we're using the word today, would be if I wanted to do straight from crypto to crypto, how would the escrow still operate? I'm assuming as we do it, it would be still the same process. It goes into escrow to a different account for escrow, and then we're just transferring, instead of dollars, we're transferring now crypto to the other person, and then the lawyers are still doing their same transaction.
Exactly. It's the same process, but at the moment of the signature, we move the crypto to the defined wallet. In the crypto space, there's always, hey, we send a test, you receive it, okay, yes, good, perfect, we're sending the rest. There are also transactions where we send part to Costa Rica, part to stay in the US, or goes to other places. We just did a one where we had to send part of the funds, not all of the funds, but part of the funds to Switzerland. So it's very tailor made based on the
Yeah.
seller needs.
Yeah, I mean, we've been dealing with a lot of different people as we talked about throughout the escrow company that you and I are working with and on the board. People are also just managing their houses or different things in Costa Rica because they can exchange it into dollars, hold money in escrow, and then pay for car accounts, insurance, property taxes, things like that. So it's not just transactional for real estate, but that is the process to go through, but it has many different assets in there as well. And like you said, whether it be the money's going to the UK, to Switzerland, to the US, it then becomes very specific in how we curate the deal on each one of those as they go through. And that's what you and I have been pretty good at being able to get done here through the law firms and stuff like that. So, all right. Well, I'm going to add
Yes.
it there. If anybody has any questions, please go ahead and write it in our, throw the questions into our YouTube channel there, and we'll get back to you, and we'll speak about some of those on the next call, and or bring them up in our blog as well. Okay, the other thing we want to get through today a little bit, kind of chat on, is just kind of seeing where Bitcoin's at today. I mean, I know we're all watching; people are a little bit scared. I know you and I talk a lot about. We've been buying more, I'm sitting on a bunch of different altcoins and things like that I've been sitting on for a while. We also watched the market do its rise and dip and, sold out a bit. I think I sold a kind of a big chunk out somewhere around I want to say the $98,000 point, for a little bit there. And then I'm buying more back the other way, and maybe touch base on you and I, listeners, about why do we think it's hovering at, that 64 to 66 range right now, and why do you think it's coming up? And maybe partly for me, I think a lot of the push right now is the institutional stuff. I think that there's a big push from what Trump's doing in the US. You just saw crypto.com re-sign its banking letters and get that going for them. And then you've got a bunch of institutional coins and or banking backed governmental crypto concepts coming into play. I'll put it out there. I know there's a lot going on. So it's kind of interesting to see the stable coins that are being built. I mean, the backing of XPR, Ripple right now, right, which is getting pushed really hard in different markets like in Japan and in US as well. You're starting to see another big push in that. So what are your thoughts on why we're kind of hovering still and not coming up, and the next moves, and what do you see happening?
Yes, I mean, I see it in two ways. One, there's a lot of uncertainty because of all the moving part from a macro point of view. For example, everybody's talking about yesterday a State of the Union speech. A lot of not only Bitcoin equities are a bit higher. We have Iran, we have the tariff, the Supreme Court ruling. So there's multiple moving parts, and when that happens, institutions, like you said, they sell the risk assets, and at the end of the day they are trading, so they sell it, they know the price is coming down, and eventually they buy it again. So it's part of the game. On the flip side, I'm super bullish about the industry in general because there are a lot of work related to stablecoins. If you start understanding what is happening in the US, they are really ruling as it should happen years ago. The stable coins model, regulations, everything. And I think that's super helpful for the industry in general, and also is amazing for a lot of applications, cross-border payments, B2B transactions. There's a lot of use cases around there. And at the end of the day, that part benefits the whole industry, and of course, Bitcoin, that is like the father of all the different coins around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a scare of some people as well. They feel like the premise of what Bitcoin was created for was to not be as excuse me, as regulated or institutional as it looks like it may be coming. But I think it's still going to have the allure or the freedom that people are, why they're investing in it, right? I mean, although you may get you're getting new stable coins, and all the Coinbase is signing to be a bank, things like that. I think it's just making it more accessible to people, whereas a big chunk of the population has been so scared about using or going down the road because they thought, this was going to fail, this was going to get out of here. And now, you got a clicker coming across CNN or Newsweek, right, with Bitcoin and Ethereum on it, right, which all of us for a long time never thought we'd see that, right? And so, I mean, I think we're way past that stage right now, and I think the global acceptance is starting to change, and hence the reason why I think countries like Costa Rica that have such a and we've touched on this before, such the ability to become one of the strongest, let's call it technology countries in Central America. You're really seeing a big push with organizations, and I always use Bitcoin Jungle just because I'm in usually Dominical, the southern zone here, and they're pretty strong. But they're starting to expand. I mean, I was in Santa Teresa, like I mentioned, for the weekend, and there was easily 4 or 5 I saw at different places Bitcoin ATMs. Most of the places that I went into that were local stores for buying ice cream or shopping for a dress or something like that, or bathing suits. I went to buy a Brazilian bathing suit for my wife at a place that's been there forever, and all of them had Bitcoin accepted on their door. I didn't get into that. I was moving quite fast there, but I didn't get into which programs they were using. Locally we have the Bitcoin Jungle. People are still buying at the Fedia and doing a bunch of different things. I do really feel like Costa Rica, maybe not as strong as a push as Salvador is doing, right? But we are definitely, I think, some of the forefront, even though it may not be as accepted by the government. We're probably one of the countries that I've seen in Central America that's making a really big push internally from, like, let's call it grassroots coming up to really be an acceptance of cryptocurrencies in the country.
Yes, I mean, if you see the Bitcoin paper, the initial white paper, it completely P2P, everything, that still is happening. Bitcoin Jungle is a great example. But if you want Bitcoin price to go back to 100K, half a million and above, you need to have Wall Street and institutional players. Eventually, for example, Kevin O'Leary, many people might know him. He always said, hey, when with compliance, sovereign funds in general will be able to allocate part of their capital to Bitcoin, and that's where the price will be skyrocketing. And he's even mentioning that the Bitcoin, or crypto, talking about the industry, could become the 12th S&P economy sector. So the two vertical needs to be alive and interacting with each other. The institutional, and let's call it the initial of the genesis vision for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, it's bringing it to the mainstream is what it really is. I mean, it's the same conversation forever. As we fight at what level we don't want it to a certain extent, but you're right. In order to drive the prices up or get things to levels we want to be at, it needs to ride along with the institutional. And it's amazing to see. I mean, you've seen a lot of the different companies that have been taken down. Whatever bad exchanges or there's someone's name coming up all the time from Japan, China, different areas. Where they're like, hey, FTX or this or these guys or the different Bitcoin changes, but we are seeing a lot of consistency. I mean, Coinbase is holding consistency, right? Some of the other ones are holding big consistency and doing trading. You've got a couple in Canada, other ones in the UK that you're seeing this solidarity to that, where people are really sticking with it, right? And they're holding, they're playing, they're doing the markets like you would anything else. So I agree with you. I think that once we institutionalize this a little bit more, I don't think it takes away the singularity of what we're trying to do. I think it only enhances it and brings us to another level. I mean, you're still always going to have the privacy that you want. I mean, using things like a ledger or something like that, right? It's still keeping you extremely private for your wallet. It's just until you bring it to the mainstream, I mean, you could still trade between you and I on a ledger and never, it's just a straight transaction, which is saving us transfer costs and some anonymity, right? That we're being private. So I think that there's something good to be said for that. And I think it's something that we're all hoping as we see inflation. I mean, I just read 2 days ago in Costa Rica, kind of attacking the central bank right now to fix our cologne, right? I mean, I think we're down like almost a 440 or maybe even lower in the last couple of days. That's at a point where our market is not there. I mean, our industries. I mean, I haven't seen Costa Rica in my personal view, and I'm interested to see the first quarter numbers come out. But I've felt the increase of people being around. I mean, I've been through Tamarindo, my offices. I've been to Santa Teresa. I've been in San Jose, and things are busy. I mean, the small little town Dominical, it's busy. Santa Teresa was busy. Tamarindo, those areas, the bigger markets, even up in the Papagayo Peninsula, it's been busy, right? So that's a good push for our country. But where we are hurting is the inflation and the clone in that sense being so low, right? So hopefully that can balance out with different things as we talked about crypto and stuff like that.
Yes, I mean that's almost a topic for a new podcast, but I completely agree that everything needs to be balanced. That Cologne needs to adjust to the reality of our economy, because at the end of the day, you're hurting tourism, you're hurting share services, export a company that exports. So that's something that I'm sure that eventually is going to be at the levels that it has to be. And yes, and because at the end of the day, for example, the amount of external capital that is coming directly through Bitcoin that to develop real estate projects, to buy property is huge. So yes.
Yeah, I mean it's going to change the market on a whole, and I think that's where Costa Rica is really has the ability to grow in a different manner, right? I mean the acceptance. I mean, what people don't realize is our market is changing already, and I would like to say that it hasn't, but in general, that average house that was selling for 750 or 1.5 with an ocean view somewhere now has gone up to that $2.5 million range. But when you look at overall on a global look at it, Costa Rica is still a very reasonable country for real estate, right? I mean, it's a very, you can go into different markets in Flamingo by a marina or Mount Antonio or the southern zone, Golfito, where projects we have coming up with condominiums that are within walking distance to marine and stuff, and they're very acceptable prices, which are between like 400,000 and 700,000, let's call it. But even when you look at a luxury home per se, most of those luxury homes that are there in areas like in the U.S. or something like that, you're talking $20 million, $50 million, things like that. Where $3 million house in Costa Rica is, you can look at in Flamingo and areas of the southern zone. That's a 7,000 to 8,000 square foot beautiful home overlooking the Pacific Ocean with access to a lot of different amenities that you may never find in other countries, right? And also in a country that I like to say is probably one of the safest countries I've ever lived in. Things happen and people like to blow it up, but in general, I can drive anywhere in Costa Rica, from the mountains to the Arenal to the volcanoes to the southern zone of Golfito to the north in Tamarindo and Samara, and I don't ever feel unsafe. Yeah, there's areas you may not go in at late at night, but in general, I think Costa Rica is a very safe country, and that's very unusual for Central America as you get into areas like Mexico and things, which we all know what's kind of going on there now. So
Yes, and for example, I mean that safety is key, and combined to the political stability, it's amazing. I was with an Israel client a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me that for example, he has a friend that has real estate in Thailand, and I don't know if you knew that, but recently they changed the law, and if you have an asset, now you need to have a local partner to keep that asset.
I didn't
So
know that.
people are running, they have their whatever $5 million houses, and they are running to find a local people. Hey, I even give it for free, but I don't want to lose my vacation house, my second.
Yeah, yeah.
That's something that in Costa Rica is never going to happen. So those are the things to consider in general for Bitcoin holders or for investors in general.
Yeah, and I watched the State of the. I mean, I watched Laura in her acceptance speech the other day, or coming in, the new president of Costa Rica, and she made a statement that really hit me hard too, which was the power that these organizations have had and how to change those organizations, right? Because we've got a lot of smaller organizations or things in Costa Rica that were created back in the 70s and 60s, right? That don't apply to today. And I know we're kind of getting off topic a little bit here, but it doesn't apply to today. And I think that it seems, at least in my point of view, that her push is really to get this country to a new level again, change some of these older laws, or at least improve on them, maybe not change them, but improve on them that don't per se apply anymore to like the beach areas or things like that, right? We're encountering a lot of problems with development and or purchase of real estate. I mean, even in San Jose, I mean, you have things where a spring has a 100-meter radius around it, right, in Costa Rica, and it really affects properties. It doesn't get as enforced in San Jose, but then you go to the beach markets and it gets really enforced. And these are things that push away buyers, whether they're just cash buyers or crypto buyers or whatever it be. So, I do think that we're in an era in Costa Rica. I think the next 10 years is going to be an absolutely amazing run for us. And so I'm excited to be here. I'm not going anywhere. I know you're not going anywhere. So
Exactly.
be a citizen. They're not getting rid of me. I've more than half my life here. I'm on almost, I think, 28 years or something like that. So I'm here to stay. I'm not going anywhere. So I appreciate it. I love my Costa Rica, and I love it. I will say I'm here. Gallo Pinto all the way, right? I guess you'd say, right, as they say. So
Exactly.
my favorite is pan de casero. That's my favorite. That's my holy grail of my coffee in the morning, right, or the coffee in the afternoon.
Yes, no, completely agree, and also from an investment point of view, you could get huge upsides buying the right property.
Yep. We're still seeing great returns, and the markets are changing everywhere. And that's why I said I think we're still in the land of opportunity, especially where people bought land and stuff are so cheap years ago. Now it's kind of balanced out with the price has gone up, but there's a lot of homes now you can buy that were purchased or built within the last 10 years, and you really couldn't purchase that land and that house and build it or do that house, but you could purchase the house for less than you could build it yourself and buy it. So you can make changes to that house. You can actually, put some improvements in it and really increase the value quite a bit. So I'm excited.
Yes.
All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate your time again today. This is episode 4, so I'm looking toward episode 5. We're going to try to connect in person, I believe, is what we talked about last one. So thank you, everybody, for listening in. If you have any questions, please post them in our chat area in the bottom of the YouTube thing, and we'll get this video out later in like a day or two. So thank you for your time again, Sergio.
Thank you. And every 5 episodes, we need to make it person.
There you go. I like it.
Yes.
We'll do it together. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.